the power to wipe out a country's communications without even stepping foot on its soil. That's what the Chinese regime could do to America through Huawei. Telecoms acts as the central nervous system for all critical infrastructure. In this special report, we look at how Huawei quietly claimed such a strong foothold into America, how despite new laws, Huawei still poses a threat, and what can be done. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. What would happen if America's most critical infrastructure was controlled by adversarial powers? What happens if it has the world's most powerful military, but no way to communicate?
You can secure the borders. You can bar flights. Aeroflot can't land in the U.S. So you can bar Chinese originating flights from landing in the U.S. It really doesn't do anything because this is a global network. Everything is interconnected. But if China said, we're going to start giving unreliable information, we're not going to turn it off, we're going to give bad data, you could take a state or entire sections of the country offline for their power supply, for their healthcare information. You could shut down banking without ever setting foot in the country.
That's John Pelson, author of the book Wireless Wars, China's Dangerous Domination of 5G and How We Are Fighting Back. So what are some of those dangers?
China, through companies like Huawei, was able to really destroy the Western telecom manufacturers that had created cellular telephones and wireless technology and replace them.
Now, what happens if we rely on a system that's provided by a company that answers to the Chinese Communist Party? First, let's begin by talking about how important telecommunications really is.
It is a critical infrastructure in every sense of the word, critical for national security, for other critical infrastructures like banking, energy. The telecommunication is the nerve center for all that, and it acts without that. A lot of these our ability to respond in a time of crisis from a national security perspective is extremely impaired.
John Lankart is the co-founder of Cyber Team 6 and a former FBI counterintelligence executive, focusing on Huawei. Since telecoms is so critical, how much access does China have to America's network? A map in Wireless War shows nearly 86% of the U.S. has coverage by Huawei or ZTE. But even that number doesn't account for all the areas covered by Huawei or ZTE gear, but rather the areas covered by companies using Huawei or ZTE gear. Those areas are usually focused in rural America. The Rural Wireless Association, or RWA, noted that as of 2018, 25% of their networks use either Huawei or ZTE. One example is Eastern Oregon Telecom. In 2015, the service provider announced that Huawei, as its partner, would launch a gigabit broadband network in rural Oregon. The company has poured over $34 million into buying Huawei equipment. But lawmakers and intelligence officials started getting fearful of too much Chinese equipment on U.S. soil.
When I was talking to counterintelligence officers at the FBI, is that these cell towers that Huawei was equipping were invariably located next to nuclear missile bases or Special Operations Command or the nuclear subbase. It was more than a coincidence.
FBI Director Christopher Wray said he believes China at large is the most significant counterintelligence threat we face. U.S. intelligence officials have warned the Chinese regime can exploit Huawei for espionage or to launch cyber attacks. What's more, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, said American companies should be careful about dealing with this firm.
So the fact that we have Chinese companies that are embedded within that infrastructure and have the ability, the potential, the capability to hurt, degrade, or sabotage and shut off comms at the time of the choosing of the Chinese nation state, it is a severe national security risk, which is why there has been a shift in regulation and legislation to account for.
But here's the catch. Choosing Chinese telecom gear wasn't illegal.
When the FBI would visit these family-owned companies, they'd say, you can't do this. You can't put in this Chinese equipment. And their response was, if the government didn't want us to do it, they would have passed a law. It's so much cheaper, and Ericsson and Nokia don't even want to bid this. They don't want to bid 5 cell towers in Great Falls, Montana. They'd rather put in 500 towers in San Francisco. But Huawei said they'd service it, they'd have teams come out, and the price was just too good to pass up.
But some lawmakers and officials have since argued the risks of potential Chinese espionage are too great. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia said in a statement, the federal government failed to effectively communicate the economic and national security risks of Huawei and ZTE communications equipment, and even adopted broadband grant policies that incentivized rural carriers to use this equipment because it was the cheapest around. So Congress took action.
Congress finally did step up and authorize almost $2 billion now to fund what they call the rip and replace, to tear out the Huawei gear where it exists. And again, it's a tiny fraction of the U.S. cellular network, but it's a really, really important part of it, as it turns out.
Now, it is illegal to install Huawei or ZTE equipment. That's under the Secure Equipment Act of 2021, which is now law. It requires the Federal Communications Commission to adopt rules clarifying that it will no longer review or approve any authorization application for equipment that poses an unacceptable risk to national security. It's also known as the Rip and Replace program. But the process isn't as easy as it sounds.
I've been asking around about it. It's not going maybe as fast as it should have. I thought that the stuff would have all been pulled out and replaced by now. But you start learning things like you have to replace, the rules say you have to replace the old equipment with like for like, which means if you tear out old 4G, you have to put in brand new 4G. And no carriers want to install new 4G. If they're installing new stuff, they want to put in 5G. So the customers are saying, well, then don't put it in. We don't want you to put in a brand new 4G system. We want the 5G. And they say, well, the government won't fund that. I think they'll figure out a way to solve this. But I was surprised to learn that a lot of this has not been done, and we still have the Huawei gear deployed around the country.
So the impact is not as immediate because of the rip and replace is not quite as easy as those verbs that just come out of your mouth. But it will make an impact 5-10 years from now as the natural progression of network upgrades and technology upgrades occur.
The RWA and Competitive Carriers Association, also known as the CCA, promptly criticized the ban. That's due to the costs involved. The CCA said that one mid-sized carrier with 100,000 subscribers has estimated the cost to be approximately $410 million. The head of the CCA said that by removing and replacing network equipment, rural carriers were essentially attempting to rebuild the airplane in mid-flight. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We are now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. That's after being demonetized for a year. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up for a 14-day free trial, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Just so inspiring. It makes me want to go dance.
Breathtaking. I was very impressed. I'm taking my program and I'm going to mention it on the news because I think it's a great performance and people should see it.
What I loved about the show was the authenticity of it. It was taking me on a journey.
Exceptional. The technique involved, that the thousands of hours of training.
People just float. Everything was exact, and then they worked to the exact moment, and it was beautiful.
You go away feeling with a smile in your heart from it.
Have to come. Life-changing.
Make sure you see it. Make sure you see it.
Don't wait. Get your tickets now.